Networking is the lifeblood of real estate. Why? Because you have to be in front of people in order for them to remember you, in order for them to use you as their realtor. So today, we're going to give you 5 tips on how to network like a true professional. What's up guys, Louis Galt. Welcome back to the channel again. Great to see you. So networking is one of these things that a lot of people just don't want to do. Honestly, it takes time. You have to kind of put yourself out there. You have to be in front of people quite a lot to make sure you're doing it. For someone like me, it's no big deal because I'm an extrovert, but someone like my wife, who's more of an introvert, she's just not into that, and it can be really challenging to do. So if that's you, here are 5 tips just to be yourself and how you can really make this work for you. Okay, tip number 1 is to be an active listener. And this can be extremely challenging, especially for someone like myself. Why? Because if I get into a situation with people, I'll just talk all the time just because I love it. But one thing I've had to learn to do over the years is to reel it back and to actually listen. And listening isn't just not talking. Listening is actually taking in what people are saying and realize how that's relevant to the conversation and relevant to the future relationship that you're going to have with them. You know, if you're talking to someone, you can tell if someone if you're at like whatever and they have a drink and they're like, taking that kind of stuff, like that's no good. So if you're trying to make it happen, you really want to make eye contact and just let them know that you are absorbing this and actually listening to what they're saying. Now, if it's in a big group of people, then obviously you're not going to just stare at everyone who's like talking, but if it's a one-on-one or a two-on-one, you want to make sure you're actively listening with your eyes and your ears. Okay, so be a listener. And the biggest reason for doing this is to learn about them. So the biggest thing for this is to make the conversation about them, not about you. Now you can talk about, what you do or what you think and stuff like that, but really you want them to open up to you and give you little nuggets that you can mentally take where you can follow up with them afterwards. So make the conversation about them. There's nothing that people want more than to be heard. So listen to them, make sure they're getting out what they're trying to get out, and then pay attention to exactly what they are saying. Okay, the next one is to be sincere, which is a big thing. And again, it sounds easy, but it's actually not sometimes because, networking involves being around different scenarios, different places, different situations. So it might be a cocktail hour or a bar, or it might be a PTA meeting or a school event or whatever that is. All those things are very different. Like a sports event, the energy in a sports event is very, very different. Like a school meeting of parents, very different energies. But how do you continue to be authentic in each of those scenarios? And really, that's one of the biggest questions in life, I think, is how to be sincere and be authentic. Again, you have to just go back to number 1, which was listening. And being sincere is really about listening to what people are saying and then giving your input and giving your advice on the situation, or just jumping into the conversation. But don't BS people. Don't be fake, because people can see it a mile off. If you're just trying to appease someone in a conversation, it's really tough, and it will kind of get you kind of wrapped up in this like facade you're putting on, and eventually it will catch up to you. So it's not worth doing. Trust me on this one. I've seen it happen a lot. So don't try and be someone you're not. For me, it's happened a few times in a situation where we've gone to like a kind of hoity-toity event, like suit up, like, go in there and people are whoa, ho, 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 and giving it all that. And that's just not really who I am, or who me and Mackenzie are. We're very more down to earth, like to chill out and like watch Netflix. But I find myself sometimes like kind of raising up like, okay, I'll do that too, but it's not sincere. And what's going to happen is if you do end up getting a client from those kind of settings, you're not going to like working with them, and you're not going to like who you become when you work with them. So try not to appease people. Try not to kind of fake it till you make it into these situations. Just be yourself. Trust me. All right, the next big one is to be approachable. Being approachable is a huge one because I know. If you go on Instagram, go on social media, like realtors, a lot of realtors just give up this kind of vibe that they're just super cool and like, they're wearing the suits and the cars and the watches and all that stuff. And, that's cool. Like if you want to flex like that, do it, totally fine with me. But it just doesn't make you approachable. It can get you into a door or a foot in the door maybe or something like that. But for me, again, it goes back to being sincere, right? You just have to be approachable by being yourself. That's why I don't like wear a shirt and tie in these videos, and I don't try and like BS my way around subjects. It's all about just kind of being sincere and, being approachable. So for me, this is such a huge one. And this includes, body language, not kind of ducking into conversations in a corner with someone, not kind of parading around, whatever that looks like. Just think about yourself in a social setting, you know, like a wedding or like a cocktail hour or whatever that looks like. And just think about the people who you're like, I don't want to go and talk to them for whatever reason. Look at their body language, try and figure out why that you don't want to go and talk to that person, and you'll learn a little bit about yourself as well. So being approachable is huge, and just being ready for everything and anything that someone asks you, whether you've been asked 1,000 times before about what's the market going to do. Like, none of us know what the market's going to do, but have that conversation. Just be like, well, you know, it's really hard to tell, but right now this is happening. You know, what do you think? How do you feel about it? And then open that conversation up. You know, be approachable and don't hide away from conversations that come up. So that is a huge one. Okay, the next one is do your homework. Now, what do I mean by that? Not really real estate wise, but more of the event you're going to. Like, what is it about? What's the charity it supports? Or whatever that may kind of look like. Who puts on the event? Who are the big players that are going? And just read up and learn a little about them, or about, you know, what it supports or the outcome that it's trying to raise, and then have some talking points to go in with. It's super easy to do that. All you're going to do is just kind of take half an hour. If it's a charity event, plug in the charity, read through exactly what they're doing, and then be like, okay, cool, I can, you know, relate with this, this, and this. So that's the talking points I'm going to have. Or if it's a fundraiser for a school, you know, your kid's school, which you should know things about already, but, you know, just look into that. Like, you know, yeah, my kid's in 4th grade, like their teacher is blah, blah, blah. This is what they're trying to do this year. And then, you know, you have knowledge and you have something to give to conversations that you get into. You never, ever want to be stuck in a conversation where you're like, I have nothing to input here. Obviously, you can listen, but unless you can have that conversation, it's not going to go anywhere. So listening is a big thing, but you have to be able to back and forth and go with the flow in these conversations. So if you're going to a specific event, maybe a sports event, like for me, like I know nothing about American football, about basketball, or about hockey, but I've been to all three, and I've been able to have those conversations because I'll learn a little bit about it, you know. And there might be even more of a joking point than me like bringing up a stat, and they're like, how do you know that? And I'm like, well, I just read up on it. But it's an icebreaker. It gets me into the conversation. So wherever you're going to go and network, do a little bit of research on either the big people that are going to be there, or what the event is all about, or what the outcome desired of the event is, and get some talking points. And the last biggest one is follow up. Now, this is one, again, people just don't do. You know, like you go to these networking events or different events put on by lenders or title, whatever, and you meet all these people, but you never follow up that conversation. And then you wonder, like, why am I not getting listings? Why am I not getting phone calls from these people? Because you've never followed up, dummy. Like, you have to do this. It's an active thing that you have to keep doing. So plug them into your CRM. If you just met the chairman of the board of something, then, you know, you should have their number, put in your phone, you know, Louis Gall, and then, you know, where it says company, I just put in chairman of the board, so I know exactly who he is. Then plug them into your CRM and go from there. Set tasks to follow up or do whatever, and you just go from there. So it's a big thing that people miss out on. Following up is everything. It might just be grabbing coffee, it might be whatever, but do it pretty quickly after you guys meet. You know, you don't want to leave it like a month or 2 months and you're like, hey, remember I met you at this thing? They're like, no. You know, do it a couple of days in, like, hey, great to meet you. I'd love to connect. What does next week look like for you? You know, so really following up with people that you meet, especially if they could be potentially clients, but really not just clients. You want to look for people who could be pivotal in the community for you to be connected with. You know, it might be business owners, it might be members of the local community. So you might be meeting local business owners or people who like run successful Facebook groups or anything like that you can get plugged in with, where you can get another kind of entry into the community or entry into an area you want to serve. So make sure you are following up with these people you meet. Otherwise, what was the point in even being there? So there you have it. Networking is something that a lot of people just don't want to do, because honestly, sometimes you can go to these events and like meet no one, and like it is a bit of a waste of time, which kind of sucks. But I know a lot of people who network very well, and they do it successfully, and it has brought them a lot of things that they wouldn't have thought of in the past. Not just like buyers and sellers. It could be, you know, exclusive agent for this organization, or it could be a sponsorship with this person, or whatever it may look like. You just never know where these relationships are going to go. So make sure that you are an active listener, that you are being sincere, that you are approachable, that you have done your homework on the event, and lastly, that you follow up with these people. All right, that is it for another week, guys. If you have any questions or comments, drop them below. If you haven't been to the channel before, make sure you subscribe, give it a thumbs up. That would be awesome. And I will see you on the next one.